Before this video starts today, I just want to say thank you to our patrons, Nanani no Nora Paidrei. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. And let's go ahead and get today's video started. Hey guys, this video is all back again with another Card 5 Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, subscribe, and donate to Patreon. Let's get one started. Today we have Brandt Seraph deck profile. As in Seraph Purelight. You know, the grade 4 that scares me? Yeah! Whew, Seraph can hit numbers, hit crits, and something that will kill me in easy if you're playing a deck that uses all types of resources, you are most likely going to be screwed over by Seraph. If you're playing a deck that only uses one resource, or can just outpower them really quickly, then you're fine. Something like Bruce could probably take this down. Bashing could probably take this down. Zorga took it down. PBD died very painfully to this. So let's go ahead and get this deck profile started, shall we? First up, we have our starter. Okay, apparently it's not gonna. There we go. First up, we have our starter in Aurora Battle Princess Ruby Red. 6k base, 5k shield, grade 0 with boost. Auto when it's wrote upon. If you win second, draw a card. Nothing special about it. Standard starter. You run this because it's an Aurora Battle Princess. I mean, who doesn't want more Aurora Battle Princesses? You know, the things that kill everyone in their path. So that's our starter. Next up, we have our Overtrigger in Star Dragon Deity of Infinitude, Eldobreath. 5k base, 50k shield, grade 0, boost. Overtrigger, you may only have one Overtrigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, gets plus 1 million for the turn. And if revealed during draft, you get an additional effect, which is double the power and critical of all of your former units until end of turn. Increase to double its power and critical when activated. So if you drive check this, someone gets the million, and then it gets doubled to 2 million. So one of your units is going to guaranteed hit unless they have a PG to stop it. But then also, doubling the crit of the front row. If you combine this with Purelight, quad crit on front row, numbers galore, your opponent is going to need 3 PGs to survive this crap. Yeah, I said before, like, you need Eldobreath to put pressure, like, yeah, Obari put pressure in terms of numbers, but this thing puts pressure in terms of power and critical. I mean, in terms of, like, critical. Yeah, Purelight confirms my theory that you're going to want this over Obari, because while extra crits are fine and all, you want to go quad crit on this shit. So Eldobreath is a nice overtrigger. We run it at 1. Next up, we have 3 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Amy Orange for draws. 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Fronte Rose as front, and 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Lourus Yellow as crit. You may be wondering, why am I not running any of the effect triggers? Because all of them are not Aurora Battle Princesses. That is why. I would technically run Robocop because it is somewhat I would classify that as an Aurora Battle Princess, but it's not, so I won't run it. I know none of their skills are restricted to being Aurora Battle Princesses, but I refuse to not run all Aurora Battle Princesses if physically possible, minus the exception of the PG and technically the orders. So, I prefer it this way. If you want to run the normal triggers, go ahead. But remember, this deck, like Magnolia, is capable of winning a lot more than losing, even without the effect triggers. I just want to let that be clear. You don't need effect triggers to be good, because this deck is good without the effect triggers. And then we have a heal in Aurora Battle Princess Tesru Green. We want the draws for hand cards, but we don't want too many of them because we got like 2 units that can do triple drive. Fronts for obvious numbers. Crits because you can never have too many crits. And heals because heal. And before we get our normal unit started, let's go ahead and talk about our main order of the deck. 2 copies of Galaxy Central Prison Galactolus. After set order is played, it's put into your order zone. It rests one of your units to play it. Auto, when it's put into order zone, Soul Charge 3, continuous order zone. When your opponent would normal call a rear guard, they may perform one of the following. Soul Blast 1 if they do they choose one of their imprisoned cards and call it to rear. Counter Blast 1 if they do, they choose 2 of their imprisoned cards and call it to rear. So pretty much, you imprison their rear guards with this deck, and then they can call them back out with this prison. Now, the thing for this to be placed, the resting a unit, that sucks if you're going second, because that means you either have to rest your Vanguard, which means you lose out on drive checks, or you do what I do and be ballsy enough to call PGs just to Soul Charge 3, because half the time I either have PGs or triggers. I don't think it's that bad calling either of the two, it just sucks having to call them. If you go first, which is ideal with this deck, you get a free search of this. Now if you're wondering why there's 2 of them instead of 1 of them, it's because in this chance that you do go second, you don't want to just like draw this, or like regardless, you just don't want to draw the 1 copy of it in deck and then you ride Kyanite to blue and you don't get just a free hand card search. So the other one is basically just discard fodder, obviously. So you know, you want that free hand card search, you're running it too. It's that simple. So 2 copies of Galactolus. Next up, we have our starting grade 1s, normal units. 3 copies of Aurora Battle Princess, Suppress Gleamer. 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Continues rear guard. If your Vanguard has Seraph in its card name, gets plus 5k power. during both players' turns. So that's a 13k base. Really easy. The second you hit grade 3 or grade 4, that's a permanent 13k, which is really nice. And then auto when it's placed on rear guard from hand, for reasons. If 3 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, search it after 1 copy of this card, call it to rear guard and shuffle your deck. Because if it wasn't for call from hand, you could just basically call 3 of these to the back row at once and then get 3 13k boosters. All around, you want this for like the early, you want this for the Purelight turn where, say for example, your hand's really limited and you only have Suppress Gleamer. You use Purelight, get your whole front row to big numbers, you call Suppress Gleamer, skill Suppress Gleamer, get yourself another copy of Suppress Gleamer. They're both at 13 on their own. Purelight makes them a lot bigger. Even if they're only 2 units, they hit for big enough numbers. That's why Suppress Gleamer is here. Adds numbers, makes it a lot easier to do Purelight rush turns, so 3 copies of it. 4 copies of Violate Dragon. 6k base, grade 1 boost, 0 shield, contains Sentinel. You have to 4 Sentinels in your deck. And auto, when it's placed on guard circle, choose one of your units and it cannot be hit until battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from hand, discard it. So standard PG, nothing too special about it. If you don't know what this PG basically means, it's if this and only one other card in your hand when you would place this down on guard circle, you don't have to discard one, which is really nice because that means you can play as aggressively as you want and still not get screwed over. Even if you are left with 2 PGs in hand, you don't have to discard either of them, which is amazing, just for guarding purposes. And that sometimes happens in this deck when I get pushed into enough of a corner to where I might actually have to rely on that Suppressed Gleamer to call boards, but all around, the PG is needed. I do say that this is one of the decks where you might want the like good PG in it, but you can run the regular PG if you want, because the regular PG works just as fine, so 4 copies. And then our last grade 1 is the main grade 1 of the deck and the ride line card. Aurora Battle Princess Kyanite Blue, only at 1 copy, which goes into the ride deck. 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto, when it's placed on Vanguard, search your deck for up to 1 prison card, reveal it, put it to your hand, shuffle your deck. Yeah, there's only 1 prison card, and it's this thing. You get this to hand really easily. And then auto, when it's placed on rear, if one of your opponent's cards is imprisoned in your prison, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, draw card. You're never going to use that. There's no way to call this old in this deck. Even if there was, you would not waste both your counterblast and your soul blast just to use that skill just to draw a card when there are better options for that. You run it in the ride deck just so you can get a search of your gameplay mechanic, and that's it. And typically, if you're going first, you use this as rush. You use this as rest fodder to soul charge 3 and get your prison out on board. So 1 copy of Kyanite Blue. And then we go to grade 2s. Before I start the normal units, let's get ahead on the orders. The only other order in this deck is 2 copies of Moment of Capture, Aurora Battle Princess 24-hour coverage. Grade 2, normal order, play it by Soul Blasting 1. That's why this order requires you to Soul Charge 3, because it's good, and why sometimes you might just want to put 2 of them in the order zone, just to say screw it, and Soul Charge 6. If your opponent's hand has 4 or more cards, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and imprisons it in your prison. Then if 3 or more cards of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, you choose one of your units, it gets +5 for the turn. So your units get power, units get more power, you can give it to your Vanguard, you can give it to Suppress Gleamer just so you can hit 18, because you're probably on Seraph at the time you use this, and just a way to get rid of their hand for free. So coverage is really nice, I like this card, it's amazing, 2 copies. 3 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Accuse Machalite. Now, originally I didn't want to run her because I didn't know she was going to be a Japanese exclusive or an English exclusive, but we did get confirmation that at some point she's going to be printed in English. Otherwise, those were really good looking like fan art of English cards. But we know for sure, I'm pretty sure we know for sure that we're getting her in English, so now I can officially run her in my decks. Anyways, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2's intercept. Auto when it's placed on rear from hand, soul blast 1, and then imprison the top card of your opponent's deck face up in your prison. Then if you have 2 or more of your opponent's cards imprisoned in your prison, it gets +5 for the turn. Okay, so really easy to hit the 15. Like, you only have to imprison 2 cards, and it gives you 1 of them. But you also run this because it just gets rid of a deck card. I cannot tell you how many times I've either seen people get screwed over by this, or like been the one be screwed over by this, because like either this thing will take away maybe in a very important top deck like a Persona Ride, or maybe a unit that you want to have in hand and you were going to guard that turn, or maybe just a damage trigger that you were going to use to defend yourself with next turn, or maybe half the time it's been an over trigger. I remember multiple times I just keep replaying the simulation in my head where I saw someone like see an over trigger from this skill, and I felt just so bad for the person because they were just going to take the attack. Accuse Machete is really good. Really easy to get that 5k. Granted, if she wasn't on play, she'd be a lot better, but she's still an amazing card. 3 copies. 3 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Cuff Spring, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto, when it's placed on rear, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and imprison it in your prison. If a card was in prison, they draw a card. Okay, it's basically this, but you don't get power. It's for free though, but they also get a draw out of it. Now here's why this is here. You want to rack up the number of prison cards as fast as physically possible to where they hit 10. Because once Purelight goes off, the girl swings for like numbers. You all saw what happened to PBD. Like 14 cards I think it was in prison. Dude, PBD got wrecked. Like, oh, I felt bad for her. Cuff Spring does her job. Like, you use her to rack up the cards in prison. It doesn't matter if they get a draw, because that's not going to help them in the long run. Also, a combination with this thing, it's just an easy way to deck them out faster. So 3 copies of Cuff Spring, because she's free. She may get them a draw, but it helps rack up prison cards quickly. 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Spark Limone. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto rear. When this unit attack hits, regardless if it's a vanguard or rear guard, you choose up to 2 unit cards from your opponent's drop zone, imprison them in your prison, and you put them into your order zone that has a prison on it, basically. Now, this thing is the deadliest card, in my opinion, in prison, in terms of abilities, not counting Purelight. Here's my reasoning for it. Because everyone cock blocks this. You want to know why? Giving your opponent 2 free cards, even if you're never going to call them out of prison, is really bad. Especially because after Purelight got released, I started noticing that a lot of people guard this more. Because before, a lot of people, they would still guard it a decent amount because, like, they don't want you to rack up skills. But because, like, the max you would ever go to for dangerous skills is 3 with regular Seraph's Note, and to some people it would be a strategy to let them hit 3 so they would deck themselves out with triple drive. Lemon has now been starting to get blocked more and more because Purelight's a thing, and people are worried about having big criticals and a lot of extra power on them for no apparent reason, swinging at their face. So a lot of people start cock blocking Lemon now. But if at some point Lemon begins to hit someone, or you just make it big enough to where they can't guard it, they start losing the advantage, and then suddenly Lemon puts you in the advantage seat. All around, amazing grade 2. You want to run this, 4 of, because it's literally free. 4 copies of Aurora Battle Princess Perio Turquoise, our last unit in the main deck for grade 2s. 10k base, 5k shield, not 10k shield, that's an errata on the English version. Grade 2 with intercept, continues rear guard during your turn. If 2 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, gets plus 5k power, so it's a 15k swing during your turn at least, which is really easy to hit the 2 or more cards imprisoned in your prison. And auto from a rear guard circle, when your opponent's card imprisoned in your prison is placed on rear, they loses 5k for the turn. So if you imprison some really important units in their prison, even if they could get them back, they lose 5k power out of it. So it's a strategy to murder this thing before you do that, and even then you can just call multiple of these. Unfortunately, they have to be in front of a rear guard circle, so it's easier to target them so that it doesn't break the game, because otherwise you could just call 2 of them to back row, and then anything that's called becomes either a 0 or a negative number, or in the case of grade 3 is a 3k base. So Perio Turquoise is an amazing card, literally is a kill fodder along with Lemon, gets you decent power, and just screws over your opponent who's trying to make the game work against prison. 4 copies of Turquoise. And then our last grade 2, which is the grade 2 of the ride line and goes on the ride deck and not the main deck. 1 copy of Aurora Battle Princess Risatt Pink. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto when it's placed on Vanguard, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and imprisons it in your prison for free. And it continues rear guard if if 1 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned, your prison gets plus 2. Okay, you don't run it for that skill. Like, that's never going to go off. Just like Kyanite Blue, you're never calling this out of soul. But the ability just to get a free imprison from their hand, really nice. And that's like kind of why Galaxy Central Prison's so bad, because you have to have it in the order zone by the time you ride Risatt Pink, and because of the grade 2, that means either at some point, if you're not going first, you have to think, is it really worth giving up the grade 1 swing just so you can get the prison out to set up for next turn? Or do you want to call PG/trigger, or do you just want the swing instead and then not get the imprison? Because that is a thing that happens sometimes, which sucks, but it just happens that way. So all around, Risatt Pink I think is a pretty good card in terms of ride line. In terms of having the second ability, not so much. Like, I only ran it in the main deck at 3 of before, just because I wanted all Aurora Battle Princesses, and that was it. And then the second I got Perio Turquoise, I literally teched her out. So 1 copy in the right deck. Grade 3 time, baby. 2 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the ride deck of Aurora Battle Princess Seraph Snow. 13k base, grade 3 200 Persona ride. Continues Vanguard during your turn. If 1 or more of your opponent's cards is imprisoned in your prison, this is literally guaranteed by Risatt Pink, or literally any card in this deck that can imprison. It gets plus 10, and then if there are 3 or more, it gets a drive, so it has triple drive. So 23 triple drive is pretty good, meets the standards of the grade 4, and act Vanguard or rear guard once per turn. Counterboss when choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and imprison them in your prison. Really easy to hit 3 with this deck. A lot of people kind of let you hit 3 before. Now that Purelight's here, no one really wants to let you hit 3 because they're very worried about what Purelight will do unless they are planned to deal with Purelight ahead of time. So, typically this won't go off as easily and they won't just call rear guards. But if you're playing against a rush deck, feel free to punish them for ever thinking that calling rear guards was a valid strategy. You think rushing me is going to win you the game? No, I'm punishing you for it. I'm going to go Seraph Snow on rear. Hey, guess what? Because you can just call Seraph Snow to rear guard and still use her imprison skill, I'm going to do it again just to spite you. Counterboss 1. Take 4 of your units. Oh, you know what? I want more. Call Cuff Spring. Give me another one. I don't need to be doing all this imprisoning, but I want to do it anyways, just to smite you. 2 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck, because you want to be able to Persona just in case you can't get onto Purelight, especially because, especially because princesses can't really hit numbers that well, so you want to be able to Persona just in case you can't hit Purelight, and, it still has triple drive, so it's still good. And then our last unit in the deck and our last card in the deck is our grade 4, 3 copies of Aurora Fierce Princess, Seraph Purelight, the thing that scares the shit out of me. Grade 4, triple drive, 13k base. Auto when it's placed on Van, counterblast 1 and soul, blast 1 card with Seraph in his card name. So the best part about this is you can just combine this with itself, because you can just ride this on top of this and you still get it because it still has Seraph in his card name, but the first time it's probably going to be this one that you soul blast. Your opponent chooses 2 cards each from their hand, soul, rear guards, and imprison them in your prison. They got 3 soul, they take 2 of them and put them in your prison. They got 6 hand cards, they take 2 of them, put it in your prison. They got 5 rear guards, they take 2 of them, put it in your prison. This thing is the death to anyone who tries to stockpile resources or makes a board. And then continues Vanguard. During your turn, all of your front row units, including herself, get plus 5k power for every 2 of your opponent's cards imprisoned in their prison. Assuming that they just let 6 cards go to your prison, that's plus 15 already. So already that's really good. And then if they have 10 or more cards, all of your front row units get plus 1 crit. So if you put them at 4 damage before this, you call 2 suppressed Gleamers to front row, assuming because of how the numbers of 10 work. So let's see, imprisoning 10, that would be plus 25 to front row. These can give themselves plus 5, so plus 30 to these things. So 2 38k columns with double crit, and then, no, all your front row will be 38k columns with double crit. Assuming that there's at least 10. And then Cuff Spring being a free way to just imprison more cards. Yeah, PGs or effect triggers are useful now, and a lot of hand cards are about to be sent to hell. Purelight is the definition of, if you mess with me, you will get burned. It gives Aurora Battle Princess the thing it needs to be good, which is power and critical. It literally can imprison 6 cards at once just by appearing on the board. This thing is terrifying. 3 of. And that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Honestly, this thing is genuinely terrifying. Like, I used to hate Purelight. I mean, just like half of the other D decks, I didn't think I would like these coming into D, and honestly, I thought I would like Seraph Snow the least just because it gave off the control deck vibe. Set 1 was really that fun. Set 2, they introduced Turquoise and gave them something I thought they needed. Set 3 was a mess set for me, and then Set 4 introduced Purelight, which we all know how I feel about it. So, I'm Andy here. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's a really fun deck to play, hits numbers, does what it needs to, and is something enjoyable, despite the fact I didn't think it would be enjoyable. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to Patreon, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.